Well, let's start here. So, I mean, the first thing to say is there's actually a lot of diversity within ADHD itself. Like it presents differently in different people. I mean, the two big ways it presents, there's more of an inattentive way, which actually there's now all this research coming out that a lot of women have an inattentive form of ADHD and that never got diagnosed. It just was kind of flew under the radar. So that's more the dreamy, checked out aspect of ADHD. And then there's the way it presents in me, which is really hyperactive, impulsive, jumping around. So there's high risk behaviors. You can imagine there's challenges associated with that. That was big time me when I was young. I was a major risk seeker, lots of drugs and alcohol. I got all kinds of accidents. I mean, I have something like 7 or 8 near-death experiences directly related to just high risk behavior, like insane things like getting attacked by wild dogs and in giant bar fights with surfers and almost drowning in waves that I should never have been in and falling out of a tree and breaking my neck when I was high on mushrooms. And it goes on and on. It's like ridiculous, beat up by Hell's Angels. I mean, it's like, it's very funny actually. When
but I hear that, I'm like, this guy's awesome.
It was fun. I mean, that's another thing about ADHD, like up for anything. We just, this kind of high energy, excitability, positive, kind of really fun at parties.
The attentive kind.
I'm just speaking for myself. That's more the impulsive. There's a kind of buoyant, joyous, golden retriever quality to ADHD that is very, people do like having you at parties. And parties was fun. And parties was how I was regulating back then. So when you're ADHD, you have challenges with the classic executive functions. And that includes putting in place healthy habits that can help you in your life. So my experience of being ADHD largely in my 20s was I had this incredible amount of energy, I had an incredible amount of interest in lots of things, but I could not focus. I moved cities every 2 years. I lived all over the world. I moved relationships every 6 months. I moved homes every 3 months. I moved jobs every 2 months. Every time I would get bored of one, I would just jump into a new thing. And that it's the classic kind of hungry ghost thing that Buddhism is trying to address, but it's like on steroids if you're ADHD. So you have this restless sense of dissatisfaction, the sense of energy. You always need to move. You always got to be switching it up. And the moving itself is dysfunctional. And I used to sit down and I'd be stuck in email land for 12 hours straight. I wouldn't breathe. I wouldn't go to the bathroom. I wouldn't eat. You get hyper-focused in. That's another feature. But then you can't pull out. So ADHD, you have trouble with transitions. You have trouble pulling out of one thing and getting into the other thing. So you're doing something that's not really serving you. You can't pull out of it. Then when you finally, the day's over, you have all this shame that you didn't get anything done. And there you are, and this is your life. The things you're trying to get done are make money, to find a job, be in a relationship. In my case now, it's take care of a family. So you got all these stakes. So that's part of it. And because you're not able to follow through on things, there's just all this shame around not finishing projects. So I have like 5 book projects that I've half done. So that how do you rein in and regulate?
So it's funny because you can get focused, which, I would love that,
Yeah.
But then you get sort of, is it like a vortex?
Hyper-focused,
Yeah.
So it's every neurodiverse condition has its kind of like superpower liner. And that's part of learning about your situation is figuring out what that superpower is. And ADHD has many. One, not everyone has the hyperfocus, but that is one of it. When you're really interested in a subject, when you're highly motivated, you can just go forever. And it's amazing. Like the subject that I was interested in was the mind. That's how I stayed with meditation. One of the things I did was I just hyper-focused in on meditation itself, as the experience of meditation. How does the mind work? What could I notice what was happening in real time? That's why I could sit for these super long meditations. So if you're ADHD, you can recognize that there is this incredible learning adventure in the mind, that there are absolutely things you can do internally to learn to regulate your internal state. Not only are there things you can do internally, there's this mystery inside yourself that will continue to unfold and lead you into the most rich, juicy, mystical goodness. That's true.
Have you heard that from other people, or is that true for you because you have this propensity and interest?
Well, it's definitely true for me, but I think it's anyone who commits to learning about themselves and holds the direction. I think it's true for absolutely every one of those people that insights start to emerge. And the nature of an insight is that you feel like you're learning something more fundamental about who you are, how the world works. And that then creates its own momentum.
Well, so you're saying that though, if you have this sort of attentive ADHD that has this hyper focus, you can use it to actually turn that focus inwards and have this journey of self knowing and self exploration that can lead to these insights. Like that's one way to sort of use
that's
that
potentially.
tendency.
I'm saying that anyone who does that can then go on that journey. For the thing with ADHD is, what is the thing that's going to be really of interest to you? So that is actually one of the ways to work with ADHD, is to find the thing that really interests you and to let yourself get into these absorbed states. However, you have to learn the basis of self-regulation. So the basis of self-regulation is learning how to pull out and come back to the present. So you're not going wholeheartedly into your thing in a way that's creating damage to your body. In terms of the experience, so you have the hyper-focused going in millions of directions like I'm doing right now. You have high sensitivity. The only thing you're born with is the high sensitivity. Everything else is something that develops through probably developmental. That's some of the thinking around that. So being highly sensitive means that you have very thin boundaries. You're easily pulled into different directions by people, by situations. And that's kind of like, then you take that little tender, vulnerable nervous system and put it into childhood stressors, and then you can develop these chronic problems with attention and regulation. So the sensitivity is going to be there your whole life. And the sensitivity means you easily go into emotional overwhelm.
Can I ask a question again? So how does that sensitivity show up for you? Like these days, like what are you sensitive to?
Oh my God, everything. So
you really pick up on
everything.
What's going on around you all the time. You're like a vibe magnet.
Like a vibe magnet, and not just emotional. So that's the nature of the distractibility of ADHD. But the sensitivity is a superpower. I have so much compassion for people because I can see in like half a second when someone's having a challenging time.
Is that a product of the ADHD itself, or that's your wisdom practice? Like
maybe both.
Yeah.
Maybe just through experience. So it's like you can take your thing that is so challenging and ends up being this incredible gift that you end up being able to bring into the world. And you're sensitized to the entire network of ideas and possible connections.
That makes you such a great meditation teacher.
Yeah.
I say all the time, I don't think it's any secret, I'm basically teaching the same meditation over and over again. Like it's a good one, but I love your meditations because they're just so creative.
Yeah, they draw on a lot of different things, and you can use that again as a superpower. So here's another thing. This is super important, is the practice. The act of articulating exactly how you're being challenged in the moment is healing. It takes you out of that experience of challenge and gives you more perspective. So that is the nature of insight. You suddenly have this, oh my gosh, aha moment. You come out of the trance that you've been in, this kind of assumption that you've been living in that's filled up all the entire bandwidth of your life. And now you see that you've been doing that, and now all of a sudden you have space around it. And now from that place of space, you have more agency around whether or not you want to be in that pattern or out of that pattern. So this is why mindfulness is, I think, one of the most important practices you can bring to support ADHD, to be able to go, okay, what is actually happening right here? Pause. Come back to your breath, that ability to self-regulate. If you're trying to meditate as an ADHD person, you don't need to stay with the breath or only one object. It's going to be hard. You can let yourself wander. You can have a freestyle focus, but then you come back. And then you wander and you come back. A habit you're going to come back to know how to meditate on the fly. It sounds paradoxical, but to not have to stop what you're doing, to keep doing whatever it is you're doing, but slowly begin to thread in a kind of meditative principle, like the wandering and coming back, or a bit of self-compassion or something. That's really key. So you're not making like meditation has to be the strict thing that's happening over here. Instead, it can be this thing that I'm continually threading in or flowing into my life.
What about for people who are feeling like they can't sit still, they're hyper caffeinated, chipmunk energy,
move,
rolling through? Yeah, I was just going to say walking
Absolutely.
Or standing meditation.
Yeah, so that's another big one. Actually, I would say if you know you have ADHD or you really feel like you're resonating with some of what I'm saying, and you have a lot of the energy, restlessness, start by shaking. I do this all the time. Start by shaking your body, just like a little dance, like shake your arms, shake your fingers, just shake out your whole body. And you could stay doing that. You can move into kind of more fluid movement. You can have a dance party. You can do a more animated yoga series, Tai Chi, walking. You can just keep with the movement. Or you just shake, 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 and it gives you something to work with. And it can feel like it can feel cathartic, like you're letting go of some of that restlessness. Then you can kind of stop. I have this slow motion dance party where you dance with your own self-consciousness. You dance with your restlessness. Like you locate the feelings and then you just start to move with them. Like you're having a slow dance with them at the high school prom.
When are you going to do that with Dan? Please.
But you're calling me self-conscious?
I just want to see you dance with yourself.
Intentionally, idea for the meditation party retreat.
Dancing with yourself.
Dan, when I see you do the self-hugging, when I'm looking at you from behind, I just see the arms. I'm like, Dan's hugging himself.
Just so you know, he's making this up.
That makes me feel really good. I'm like, Dan's having a slow motion dance party.
Let's just say odds are low.
Yeah. You'll be doing the slow motion dance. Now that we're talking about this, there's no way we're not doing this in our
until October.
Meditation dance party in October.
Slip something into my drink.
Yeah, that's another way to regulate, of course. Yeah. One last thing I kind of wanted to offer up, which is the perspective piece. I'm 52 years old now, had ADHD my entire adult life. I've been a practitioner of some kind most of my adult life. And I've been able to see that for me, it's been a kind of journey with certain perspectives at each part of the journey. So I'll just offer that up. Like at the beginning of the journey is sort of this stage of complete confusion where you don't even know how you are. You have a certain set of expectations of how you're supposed to be, norms in the culture, and you're like a round peg trying to fit into a square hole. You just have all this anxiousness and maybe self-consciousness around not fitting in, but you don't know why yet. So there's this kind of stage of beginning to get curious about yourself. What's happening? How am I really? Like, what is the nature of my sensitivity? What's the nature of you just start to narrow in on who this nervous system is. And that goes into a stage of really learning where you're reading books about it, you're talking to people, you're listening to podcasts, you're beginning to develop a sense of who this person is. And usually from there, you can go into a stage of beginning to find the supports, the structures, the practices that are going to help you. It may just be the most basic remedial concentration practice is exactly the medicine. So this is a stage of experimenting, of learning, talking to, maybe there's a coach or a therapist, it's talking to a psychiatrist, if the medication route is something that needs to happen. And you eventually begin to find a set of supports or structures in your life. And then you move into a stage what I would call real empowerment, but identified empowerment, where you are owning your neurodiverse condition. You're not trying to mask it. You're talking about openly insofar as it's in a safe space. And then I would just offer as a meditator that for the past 10 years for me, a kind of empowered disidentification. That when you watch any neurodiverse condition, when I watch my moment-to-moment experience of ADHD, the symptoms of the challenges go up and down. And actually, what you start to notice is the one who's looking, the one who's mindful, doesn't have ADHD. There's no ADHD in there at all. There's nothing in there. There's nothing in there. There's just awareness. And that is the ultimate relief. My mind and body will always be predisposed to ADHD, but it is not the heart, the core of who I am. And actually, the more I only narrowly identify with that, the more I put a limit on myself that I don't need. So there is a kind of spaciousness and fluid, supple, joyful way of being in the world, regardless of what your condition is in the mind and body. So I'm pinging around all four of those stages. So it's not like it's linear, but so that, my friends, is my opus on ADHD in practice.
Wow. Bravo.
Oh, what a relief. I don't want to talk about that anymore.